One of the most valuable assets in this world and in this dimension is time. Grounding yourself in the present moment. I am your host, Devon, and you are listening to another episode of Center of the Sun Podcast. Thank you for listening. Your purpose is to be inspired and be connected to the world that is swirling all around us right now. Imagine getting all the way to your old age and just to be diagnosed with some sort of fatal illness like cancer. In your whole life, through your 40s, working hard to become this professional everyone told you to be. Imagine wanting kids but putting them off, or marriage, but never really committing to the formality. You're worth more than your career title. Your life is worth more than the everyday corporate slavery. Imagine getting all the way to your 70s just to realize that your friends have perished and you don't have any family. Imagine getting all the way to your 70s to realize that you have acquaintances but never close friends. You could also think back to childhood, but you were a loner back then too. You don't have to work your fingers to the bone, and you're allowed to have a life. You should be planning trips, meeting Tay Diggs in Jamaica, and getting your groove back like Angela Bassett's. But it's always been you helping others, extending yourself beyond your breaking point. And you don't know what it feels like to do good without someone expecting something in return, because that's how people have always treated you throughout your entire life. You are confused sometimes. And when I say sometimes, I mean that because you cannot tell the difference between who is being selfish and who is actually being helpful. So you're constantly weighing questions like who's benefiting from this social transaction, or is it me or the person that's helping me, or should I be worried about this person? But here's the bottom line. When you go to help someone do something, like watch their kids or like help them with their homework or something like that, you should do it with an open heart, basically. And on the other hand, you're nice, but at the end of the day, you have needs and you have wants and interests and desires as well. So you cannot be that damn nice. And you must always reserve the right to tell people what is on your mind, but they may start to treat you differently afterwards. So beware. Like at work, when you do a good job, you don't get more money. You only get more work. Why does it seem like everyone is serving themselves? Especially when you have been nothing but selfless lately. Well, your thought process is that you are connected to, and when you care for people, they naturally reciprocate and do nice things and put in the effort, like thank you. But that's not always the case, and they don't always come knocking at your door during the times that you need them. For instance, when was the last time that you helped somebody move into a new apartment? That's a perfect example, because you do all this logistical planning to help them map out workflows, to make it more efficient than a Ford plant. You miss work all day, and make sure that the energy stays high throughout the day, because so that you can keep the ball rolling. But at the end of that day, you barely hear a peep. Well, eventually, someone realizes that they forgot to say thank you. But by the time that happens, it feels almost too little, too late, like JoJo. So you don't want to put yourself in the position to give people ultimatums, especially just for them to give you basic respect. And that's because you like doing things out of the goodness of your heart. It doesn't have to be an ultimatum, and make no mistake. It feels just as good or better when people appreciate the work you put into making their lives better. And it's not like you want them to go out and buy you a Big Mac truck. You just want them to do something, a small gesture for you too, or just simply say thank you. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do for the actions of others. I can't really tell you how to get people to start respecting you, but there is a way to address these internal issues that arise when you do have these experiences. So when you feel invisible, you must determine how you process those feelings. And some people call it metabolizing the feelings, or like coping with the feelings. And when you do that, you have, to internally transform the negativity that is bubbling up inside of you. Otherwise, you start rusting from the inside out. You start corroding your insides. You start activating your sympathetic nervous system, and it causes damage to your body. It ages you sooner than you need to be aging. Personal transformation requires you to pay attention to the collective consciousness. And in addition to that, you need to be paying attention to your internal universe. While interacting with the rest of society, you must figure out how to resolve differences of opinion in politics and culture. Government policy is one way that people try to affect change in the world. Donald Trump is the perfect example of how somebody can affect the collective when their mental is not right. And you have to decide how you're going to operate your life. And especially, you have to decide so that you can survive first within your heart. You have to be able to cope with the weird stuff that you have to deal with first before anything else. And you have to ask yourself and subsequently answer the question about what interests you the most. So there are a few questions like, can you build a fair and a cooperative world? Is it even possible in this climate, in this political climate, in this cultural climate? How do you ground yourself so that you can tap into your higher self? What does that mean? What does that even look like? In addition to that, am I strong enough to reduce the suffering of myself and of other people? Is there any point, if my purpose is, if I truly feel like I want to help people without reciprocity, in that it's very important to me, am I strong enough to even reduce the suffering of myself? And then if I reduce the suffering of myself, can I reduce the suffering of other people? And there are billions of things that pull you in all kinds of directions throughout your day. Your job, your children, your family, they can all make you feel like you have no control. Well, just like any process, the first step is always acknowledging that you have a lack of control. So just like the first, the 12 steps of alcoholism or whatever it is, you have to acknowledge that you have no control and that you need help. Once you acknowledge that, then you acknowledge the things you do have control over. Figuring out what you can control in your life is not very easy. So, like I said earlier, you should tread very lightly. There is an author. Her name is Laura Vandernoot Lipsky. And yeah, that's her name. She's the author of a book called The Age of Overwhelm. And she says that it can take you your entire life to figure these things out. And that's why you should probably try to give yourself as much time as possible. So time is the most valuable asset in this dimension. This is why, she kind of explains why you should be giving yourself more time. Here are 19 actions. 19. She's a long-winded lady. From the age of overwhelm that you can take right now to give yourself more time while improving the world at the same time. So Are there things that you can do to improve yourself that also improve the world? Yes, there are. And Laura Lipsky says there are about 19 things. And I didn't, I'm not going to exactly plagiarize what she said, but I just took kind of her general thoughts about how you prevent feeling overwhelmed. So, first thing that she explains in this book is that it is much easier to avoid distraction when you act with intention on a daily basis. So this seems very trivial or whatever it is, but we are so distracted by TV and by social media, by our friends and by our family. We are pulled in a billion different directions. And when that happens, our brains and our bodies kind of go in overload. And one thing that we know, especially like in research, if you give a human too many choices, do you know what happens? Generally what happens is that they tend to not make a choice at all. So when you feel overwhelmed, what happens is that your brain starts to shut down. So it's much easier to avoid the distractions in the first place. An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of a cure. In terms of avoiding distractions, you start to act with intention. So you have to think, you have to do the things that promote your wellness. So what are those things? The first thing I would suggest is that you practice morning rituals. Whatever that means to you. Getting up at the same time every day is probably the first thing that you should do. Trying to get water first thing in the morning is something that you should do. When you take care of yourself, you start to take care of other people. So practice morning rituals. Some people meditate in the morning. Some people exercise in the morning. What do I do? I guess I just go to work in the morning. But my ritual, no, I shower. I have my quiet, my peace time. I get up really slow and in the quiet. And I get up the same way every single day and I take care. And as long as I do my morning ritual, I feel great throughout the day. And for me, it doesn't take me much because I am like a high energy person. So I need like my day to get started. I need things to start rolling. So I don't really have a ritual because I can't think until really I get coffee. But it's all about understanding the things that are most important to you and understanding the things that pull you away from what are the things that are most important to you. For instance, sometimes people have boyfriends or sometimes people have not rituals, but routines or hobbies or habits or addictions that pull them away from the things that are important to them. So you need, not that you have to change anything in particular, but just like sitting down and kind of like recognizing and acknowledging and understanding what is distracting you from kind of like imagining how you can connect with your higher self. So, and for the purpose of like becoming a little bit more selfish and a little bit more in tune with yourself, because when you help yourself, you help other people. So another thing that you should do is literally practice gratitude rituals. So writing in a journal, gratitude journal, or praying, or whatever you do to practice gratitude. It has a spiritual benefit, but it also has a biological benefit because it releases the endorphins and stuff that kind of help you feel good and help you reduce your stress and like reduce the aging process in your body. So gratitude rituals can be anything of the sort. Walking around and just like recognizing like, oh my gosh, like look at the beautiful sky, like oh my god, like oh my god, it's so beautiful. Like just do all those things. And the next thing that you should do is temporarily remove the harmful things in your life. So I know in research, we have a particular study